Namaste. Blessings to everyone here this magnificent Tuesday night, January 17th, 2023, this amazing day that the Lord hath made. Welcome to our Tuesday night Life of Spiritual Power primer. We're going over 7 key ideas, and tonight we are on number 4, which is universal neutrality. It's kind of deep, so brace yourself, prepare yourself. So my name is Reverend Denise Schubert. I am a New Thought Minister. I am the founder of A Life of Spiritual Power. I am here out of my commitment to raise consciousness on our planet. I'm here out of a commitment that we all, no matter what our age, our gender, our sexual orientation, our country of origin, whatever it is, that I'm here so that we live a life of joy, which I believe was God's intention for us all along. I don't believe we were ever meant to suffer or be in pain. So I'm here to keep doing that. If you're here with me, you can take a moment to say hello on the chat. And I'm going to, in a moment, speak a blessing upon us. Blessing, which really just calls our time spiritual. It calls our time sacred time, me time. It's time I'm taking out of my life to be with you, and you're taking out of your life to be with me. And I love that. I do. So again, welcome to this is a short series. My primary streaming is Sunday Night Alive on Sundays at 6, but I wanted to do this primer about what it means to live a life of spiritual power and what the key components are really to that living that life. I'm going to show you here. These are the 7 keys. If you are just joining me for the first time, we've already handled number 1, 2, and 3. You can go back and listen to them. They're on Facebook and YouTube for forever. And tonight we're here to talk about neutrality, universal neutrality, and what that means to us in our lives as we navigate how to live a spiritual life from a very practical perspective. So that's where we are tonight. So before we begin, this is, I have a tendency and always have had a tendency to take on enormously huge topics that need a whole lifetime to study. There are philosophers and theologians and people who have studied these questions for an eternity. And I kind of like to just get in and talk about them for 30 minutes. Really, I do. And I'm sorry, because they are huge. Even tonight, our topic tonight is a huge topic. Universal neutrality. The universe is neutral, and we are not. The universe is neutral, and we are not. But the we are not is a great source of our own suffering and unhappiness. So it deserves a looking at, because it is a key component to your peace. It's a key component to living a life of spiritual power. We have to get in touch with the truth of universal neutrality. So we're going to try it in 30 minutes, the same way I try everything in 30 minutes. So let me bless our time so that we can just dive right in. Again, if you're joining me, say hello on the chat so I can see that you're here. Otherwise, if I kind of see that someone's here, but if you say you're here, then I can say, oh, I'm not alone here. I have people here. Anyway, so take a moment. This could be the first time you've taken a moment in your day. It's a Tuesday, so most people are working, moving about in the world, probably being bombarded by people, places, situations, circumstances, the news, and everyday events. But we are always wanting to include them, but also transcend them. Include them, but put them in their proper place, which is as a spiritual activity in our spiritual existence. And so as we pause, take a breath. Exhale out any stress or tension you might be feeling tonight. Take another deep breath. Exhale out any emotional baggage that's carried over from your day or your week or your entire life for that matter. And as we come together in consciousness on this stream, we simply just invite ourselves to allow ourselves to be open-minded, open-hearted, to recognize we are connected one to another by spiritual golden threads, that what we come together to explore is more fundamental to our happiness than anything in the world can give us. And so it is from this place that I bless our time together, calling it good, calling it spiritual, calling it sacred, calling it me time, calling it time we take to explore our inner landscape rather than the outer events. And so I welcome you here. I welcome myself here. I call it good. We call it good together by saying, and so it is. Amen. So this idea of universal neutrality is a very interesting idea. And the fact is, it actually is too deep of a subject to go into in 30 minutes. So I want you to have an enormous amount of patience with me, an enormous amount of patience with yourself, because it could be that you're going to bump up against something here. Because neutrality, let me give you the definition of neutrality. Neutral means not helping or supporting either side in a conflict or disagreement. So neutral means neutral, that there is no opinion, there is no judgment, there is no right or wrong, there is no good or bad. And this, by the way, is an incredibly important conversation, because we live in a world of duality. We live in a world when something must be bad and something must be good, something must be right and something must be wrong. The idea of good and bad, right and wrong are human designations. They are not cast in concrete, and they're not divinely ordained. God, and I know I don't really want to talk about this side of it too much. I want you to kind of sort that side of it out for yourself. But we live in kind of a religious indoctrination that says that there are things that are good and things that are evil, and that God knows what those are, and he will raise and praise the good, and he will smite the evil. And to truly, I just want to say to you before we make this more personal, that God doesn't, our God, the God of my understanding, the God of my being, the God that I know is the beauty and love that permeates every living thing, every non-living thing, every rock, every flower, is not a God that deems good or bad, right or wrong, good or evil. That God only sees perfection in each and every one of its creations. And so whatever there is we're dealing with on this plane of existence for ourselves is made by us, not by God. Now, let's let God and good and evil go for the time being, because the truth is we only have 30 minutes. That's it. We have 30 minutes to talk about how this idea of neutrality fits into your everyday existence. And above all else, in my ministry, I care about the practical utilization of these principles, the practical application of God in our lives. Because listen, there are world religions who believe in God, who teach God, and still we have war, and still we have hunger, and still we have abuse, and still we have sex trafficking, and still we have, religion, I'm telling you, religion hasn't made a difference yet, and I'm not so sure in its present formula can make a difference in the way that we need it to make a difference. There's this wonderful Buddhist story I've told many, many times about this Buddhist student who went to his teacher and said, teacher, please, please, please Take me to that place of peace. Take me to that place of peace. The teacher says, oh, my student, I would love to take you to that place of peace, but if I take you, it will no longer be peaceful. Cute, right? Because it speaks to that the change in our planet, the change in consciousness must come from us. It cannot come from the God above. If it could come from the God above, we would already have peace. So this practice, this teaching of the God within, I believe is the only teaching of value that will all, and not that God is not real. Mike, listen, God is very real to me, up close, personal, a friend, a companion, a guide, my spiritual inspiration. Love is real. And God and love, by the way, the words are interchangeable. Love is real. God is real. But God's not that God. So we have to really look at universal neutrality from the standpoint of, in our own lives, good and bad are something you bring forward as a function of your training, as a function of your domestication, as a function of your parents. We have very strong beliefs about what is right and what is wrong. Now, the problem is with right and wrong is it's all personal. And the personal judgments we have, the declarations we've made about right and wrong, cause us an enormous amount of suffering, an enormous amount of pain, an enormous amount of conflict, because the ego's perspective about right and wrong is that we are right, that whatever it is you think you're right. Now, the truth is the Irish are not better than the English. The truth is that white people are not better than black people. The truth is that straight people are not beloved by God more than gay people. Poor people are not better than rich people. This is not something ordained by the universe. It's something we say. Now, one of my favorite teachers of really looking at this idea of how we can wrap our arms around neutral. So here's what I want to say to you. The entire world is neutral. There is no meaning anywhere in the world other than the meaning you give it. None. And I say that, I mean, I live this, I believe this. There is no meaning in the world other than the meaning that you give it. Actually, we could stop right here and I could say, I love you, goodbye. And if you could ponder that and really get the truth of it for yourself, that your life has only the meaning you give it. So if your parents got divorced and you decided that relationship sucked and you would never have a good relationship, that's on you. If you said, so many of us lived through the 60s and 70s when John F. Kennedy was killed, and we decided that the world was going to hell in a handbasket. That's on us, not on the world. The world and the events of the world are neutral. Now listen, I grew up in an incredibly dysfunctional family. And in that dysfunctional family, I grew up like everyone else, having made decisions about life and about myself and about my siblings. And then I proceeded to live life as if all of my thoughts about those situations were true or real. It's not true that your ex-husband's a jerk. It's not true that you're not good enough. None of it's true. It's all neutral. That we have, as gods in our own universe, the capacity and responsibility to bring forth a perspective or a point of view that raises us and praises us and lifts life. Or we can also make the decision that this is bad and terrible, this is good and great. But that's not the point tonight either. The point is just to see that you are behind the meaning that any situation is given. Because I promise you, listen, for whatever opinion the Democrats have, the Republicans argue it. Whatever opinion the Republicans have, the Democrats argue it. Whatever opinion the fundamental Christians have, the Hindus argue it. That who's right? Who's right in the assessment of life? Byron Katie is one of the teachers I love in this conversation. She has many, many wonderful things to say to us, and she calls it loving what is. Her book was called Loving What Is. Don't argue with reality. Just whatever is in front of you, love it, which requires us to withdraw judgment, right? Requires us to withdraw our righteous indignation that we are right and other people are wrong. She says, Byron Katie says, the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but our thoughts about it. So the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but our thoughts about it. I remember being in the hurricane here and being without power, being without hot water or internet for 12 days. And I remember every day working with myself. It's like, Denise, stop calling it bad. Stop calling the situation bad. Your thoughts are making it bad. What if you call it a time to be in community? What if you call it a time to go to bed when the sun comes up and when the sun goes down? What if you just call it something else and see if it can alleviate your suffering a little bit? She says, separate your thoughts from the situation, which is always neutral. It is as it is. Now, one of the things I love about one of the sayings I have for myself, which I do, and I haven't added this in here, but it's whatever the situation is also so what. Yes, my sister was mean to me, so what? That's what so is my parents got divorced when I was 10. It was really hard. And so what? And this does not, by the way, minimize our experience. Do not hear this as your feelings don't mean anything. Don't hear this as nothing has meaning. Just recognize that the meaning it has is the meaning you give it. There's no inherent meaning in the universe. This is a very we experience good and evil because we experience the presence of duality. In life, in spirit, there is no duality. There's only unity consciousness. Whatever God is, God loves God. Whatever God is the same to all beings everywhere. We are its creation. There is no judgment. There is no condemnation. There is no I like you better. You will foil the ego if you shift, because the ego thrives on I am right, you are wrong. I am good, you are bad. The ego thrives that you would be a martyr and that you would live your life suffering because of something that happened to you. The ego loves that crap. So our job as spiritual seekers is to try to view whatever reality is. I have another reading here from Byron Katie. She says, I have simply stopped arguing with reality. And in this case, by the way, reality just means whatever's going on. If you're in a hurricane, the hurricane's going on. If you're, when I got my hip replaced and was in the hospital, to argue with the fact I was in the hospital caused me enormous suffering for a minute. Like, oh my God, I shouldn't be here. It's like, I shouldn't be in the situation I'm in is arguing with reality. You are in the situation you are in. Even now, you are in the situation you are in. So she says, I've simply stopped arguing with reality. How do I know the wind should blow? the wind is blowing. So if the wind is blowing, it's supposed to be blowing. If you're in the hospital, you're supposed to be in the hospital. If you're in a conflict, you're supposed to be in a conflict. So can we soften around whatever the reality is? She says, arguing with what is like teaching a cat to bark. It's not very fulfilling. And I only lose when I argue with reality 100% of the time. So you and I, we are meaning-making machines. And the way that the ego works is that something happens in life. And listen, you could be listening to the news. The news could irritate you. What your mother-in-law is doing can irritate you. But we are here as spiritual beings to anchor love and peace on the planet. Because only in doing that, will love and peace begin to prevail. That our constant and persistent need to be right, our constant and persistent need to judge, our constant and persistent need to look for who's right and who's wrong, who's good and who's evil, keeps the whole system in place. Byron Katie also says, a teacher of fear cannot bring peace to earth. We have been trying to do it that way for thousands of years. I'm going to read that again. A teacher of fear can't bring peace on earth. We have been trying to do that for thousands of years. So a teacher of fear is a person who believes that they have something to lose and something to protect and something to take from another. That teacher of fear believes that there is a God who believes that Irish people are better than English people, or that Christians are better than Muslims or Hindus. There is no God like that. It's all man-made. I'm telling you, it's all man-made. That God, the God we're talking about, in my experience, is a God of unconditional love, unconditional regard, is the bringer of beauty and love and peace, period, exclamation point. She says, the person who turns inner violence around, the person who finds peace inside and lives it, is the one who teaches what true peace is. We are waiting for those teachers, and you are one of them. It's a beautiful idea, but it does require that we do the work within ourselves, the serious work within ourselves, to lay down the weapons that move through our mind. And you know what I'm talking about, the weapons against our ex-lovers, our ex-spouses, ex-presidents, current presidents, the weapons we hold against those people who did this. And the universe is neutral. You know, we do this, by the way, it does not mean that there are not behaviors and actions which there should not be. Being a little human here. But what I want to say to you, how I deal with this in my own life, is I believe in the universal principle of cause and effect. What goes around comes around. We reap what we sow. The retribution is not mine, saith the Lord. So it is not ours to judge. It is not ours to render judgment. And we're not the judge and the jury and the sentencing. It's not ours to decide what was wrong and what was right, who should be punished, who should pay. It's not ours. That is a hostile environment that can only lead to a hostile environment. Your job as a spiritual seeker, my job as a spiritual seeker, our desire to anchor love and peace on this planet, is we must give up judgment. And we must see that every situation we are in is neutral, that we bring meaning to it. So you have a choice always. Do you bring meaning according to the spirit, or do you bring meaning according to the ego? That is the charge. And this is deep. I do know that. This is a deep conversation because it really gets to the whole, guess I'm going to go there, but it gets to the whole question of divine punishment, hell and heaven, and it gets to the really the very origin of fear itself. And I'm saying to you that if we can get to the other side of that, that you will find and I will find that there is nothing but love here, that there is unity consciousness here, that we have the capacity to not condemn, to not punish, because I will tell you that the divine does not punish or condemn. You are innocent and free in the moment, that whatever it is you've done, whatever's been done to you, there is no, the universe is neutral. That God does not take side. We go back, if you go back to the definition, God does not support either side in a conflict or disagreement. God is impartial. God does not say, oh yeah, go Irishmen, let's smite the English. And I know that it feels like all of our religious teaching tells us that, but it's not so. It's not so. We are surrounded by a supporting, loving energy that is for you and not against you. And our job is to be for life and not against life. Whew! It's a big one, right? It's a very, very big. I have a couple of wonderful quotes today for you also about this way we view life. So Richard Bach says, what a caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. So this gives us a kind of teaching about when your life has turned to goo, or when it looks like the world has turned to goo. Goo is what happens to a caterpillar inside its a chrysalis. That we can bring a perspective that says something better here is happening, something magnificent here is happening. What a caterpillar calls the end of the world, because a caterpillar's life the caterpillar knows it, is over, but what emerges is something more beautiful and more alive. Yes. And a beautiful quote by Mark Twain, which says, my life has been full of untold tragedies, most of which never happened. So when you look back on your life, especially if the conditions of your life, the circumstances of your life cause you pain or suffering still, and there's lots of reasons there, I'm telling you, if you were, our egoic human existence throws many, many things at us that are not pleasant. And we would have maybe lots of reasons to hang on to pain and anger, resentment, but doing so only keeps you from your ordained space and place of peace and happiness. So rethink them and see if you can put a different interpretation on top of that which is neutral. Very deep teaching here. I know, very deep teaching and hard to put your arms around, but spiritual arms can take it. The heart can take it. So this is our fourth. This was our fourth key, which is to begin to understand universal neutrality, because your spiritual journey is forever thwarted. You cannot go as deep as you want to go, as far as you want to go in your alignment with source energy, if you are holding on to the idea of something's good, something's bad, something's right, something's wrong, something's good, something's evil. that we are invited into a space. We are invited into the same space that God occupies, which is to love all unconditionally, to regard all as equal, to see the good in everything, and to wait for the blessing. If it's not going the way you want it, just sit still and wait for the blessing. All right, so let's see where that leaves us for tonight. I am definitely always going to pray us out. A couple of announcements. I am blogging again. In fact, I'm unpacking Sunday Night Alive on my blog. So you can really just go to my website, which is deniseschubert.com, and sign up for the newsletter. This was us tonight. Sorry, I didn't want to do that so much. This is Sunday night. This coming Sunday, I'm doing Unclutter Your Consciousness. It's a wonderful first of the year, January conversation about making some energetic space and movement in your life. So join me on Sunday at 6 p.m. If you want to make a donation to the ministry, you can. I accept it. I accept it always. This is what I do now. This is what my ministry is. So if you want to make a love offering, if you get spiritually fed by the streaming, then that lets me know that I'm spiritually feeding and gives me the inspiration to keep moving. So you can do that also on my website at deniseschubert.com/donations. And by the way, if you love African wildlife, you should definitely go to my website and look at my blogs if you want to look at beautiful, beautiful African animals. So I think that's it. I'm going to put up here, I think while I pray, one of my favorite quotes this year is this one: "Don't let people pull you into their storm, pull them into your peace." And it's a good message, always a good message. So let me, just, sometimes we have to catch these ideas more than understand them. We just have to catch them. So it will benefit you in your forward movement of happiness, peace of mind, calm, prosperity, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, to take a kind of responsibility for your interpretation of events, past events, current events, and future events. Much of how it lands on you, all of how it lands on you, is a function of your interpretation of them, what you say. And what we say is always a function of our indoctrination into life, not a function of the Spirit. Because if the Spirit were in charge, the Spirit would say love, see love, speak love, bring forward love. All right, so join me as we close our time tonight by taking a beautiful, beautiful deep breath. Exhaling out any tension inside your body. One more deep breath. Exhaling out any tension in your mind as we simply pause to remember that we are connected by love. To remember that we are connected to the one power, the one presence, the one life that is everywhere present, missing from nowhere. That whatever it is we call God is not in one place and not another place, not in one person and not another person. God is everywhere. No spot where God is not. No spot where love is not. No spot. And so we take a moment to feel this truth, no matter what the outer appearance is, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what the conditions are. We are tasked with seeing the presence of peace everywhere. Our seeing of it brings it. And so it is from that place that I just speak a word for and about each person within the sound of my voice, simply knowing that there is some kind of shift out of this streaming tonight that allows us to release something from the past, allows us to release something we've been holding on to tightly, some judgment, some righteousness, some aggravation, some irritation, maybe even rage. Let it go. I hold that we can bring forth new interpretation, which allows for a different outcome than a fearful interpretation can possibly bring. That we are spirits of light, we are spirits of love. That is the truth of our nature, the truth of this universe, and it is our responsibility, obligation, and privilege to bring it forward. This is what I know, this is what I claim for each and every one of us. And so I just simply bless our time together, knowing that we've been blessed by each other and that we move forward from this time deep in the inquiry of what it means to be a spiritual being having a spiritual experience. And so for this and so much more, I'm grateful. We let this be together by saying, and so it is. Amen. All right. All right. So again, blessings to you. Thank you for your joining me, and I will see you next Tuesday for the next key in our 12 Living a Spiritual Life primer. Peace and blessings.